Hi, I'm Kelly Kearney with Starry Constellation Magazine, and with me today to talk about their sci-fi romantic drama, Ingress, is actor Tim DeKay and writer, director, and star of the film. It's a unique parallel, a unique take on parallel realities. Rachel Noll James. Thanks for talking with me today, you guys.
Thanks for having
Thank
us.
you.
Absolutely. Rachel is the writer and the director and the star. Take me back to the moment that inspiration, creative spark hit you for this, and the script began to flow out of you.
Oh my gosh. Yeah, so the first seed of the script actually came to me when I was still living in Los Angeles, before I moved up to the Pacific Northwest where we ended up filming it. Um, I I had for a number of years known I wanted to figure out some kind of story that had to do with some interactions I'd had through my family with a woman who was a spiritual channel, because there was just I found the whole idea so fascinating, and I loved the idea of what it would be like to be someone who hears these voices. We live in a time when that can be interpreted in many ways, and what might that be like? And I've always loved sci-fi, and so I don't know. I think the first seed of this was I was sitting in my living room and I just had this sort of scene pop into my head, which happens sometimes. And the scene was there was a little girl sitting in a foster home, and so the scene is like she's on a couch and it's chaos and noise and insanity all around her. And the camera kind of pushes in on her face, and she closes her eyes and takes a deep breath. And then when the camera pulls back out, she's in a different living room that's like quiet, and she just smiles. And I was like, well, that's a very interesting scene. I wonder what that could be. That scene
Mhm.
obviously didn't actually make it into the movie, but that was kind of the seed of like Riley's character and story in terms of like a kid who could do this, and kind of the implications of that. And so then I started writing, and then when I moved up to Bainbridge Island where I live now and kind of immersed myself in the forest and the fog, that's when the rest of the story kind of flowed out, as you said.
You definitely immersed yourself in the scenery. It's beautiful, even from the first opening shot. I thought to myself, micro budget, this looks fantastic.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Yeah, that
Absolutely.
is. Oh, go ahead. Sorry.
Were you very influenced by where you lived? Was that something that really appealed to you, and we wanted to stick to that because it really has a sort of a misty mythical feel to it a little bit, and you're going in these like alternate realities, and it's very easy to put your mind there in that sort of, I don't know what's the word I'm looking for, but very almost surreal. The way things are in that, for opening shots, I just thought, oh wow, this is going to be a really fun ride.
Yeah. I think Bainbridge definitely became a character in the film more than I even anticipated when we started shooting. But yes, I think the setting here, it's hard to envision this film in Los Angeles where it's sunny and palm tree and deserty. It just wouldn't be the right vibe. And so I think this sort of foggy, misty forest really helped bring the world to life. And I like writing in these kind of moody spaces. And so it only helped me very much as I was finding the creative juice for the story.
Well, Tim, you play Lucas in the film as someone helping to guide Riley towards this parallel
Right.
reality that she hopes exists. When you first read the script, did something about it or the character appeal to you right away?
What appealed to me about the movie was that, or the script at the time, was that I feel that of late, within the last 5 years, maybe even 10, we're so inundated with truth, and whether or not something is proven true, or whether or not something is actually true, or whether that needs to be labeled truth or not truth. And there was something about this script, that spirituality of it,
Mhm.
that went beyond having to answer to something. And I think, you go back to the forest and the fog. That's just, no, it couldn't have happened in Los Angeles. Not at all. Mm-mm. If it did, that is some powerful message happening through all the noise of Los Angeles and everything. But one of the first times I experienced grace, and I don't necessarily mean this in any religious context, although you can't help but think of religion when you use this word. But the first time I experienced grace and my understanding of it was when I was walking through the woods, and there was a new fallen snow on the ground, and it hit me, and it impacted me powerfully. And I was reminded of that moment when I read this script.
Oh,
Yeah,
what was it about the snow that that made you kind of took you out of what you were experiencing in the moment?
I think the snow, that first fallen snow, gives such a quietness, a hush to it all. And that's why you hear so many people who live in New York City or someplace like that, where that first snow, it's just, it, it has this wonderful combination of being uh, maternal almost in quieting us all down,
Mhm.
and but yet quite young and innocent. And there's something about it that says, come play in me, come walk, come do whatever. But it was just the silence of it all. And then,
Yeah.
you'd see a little bird or something like that. But it was the silence. Yeah.
Well, Rachel, we talked a little bit about micro budgets, and you had these constraints of shaping the film's tone. Talk a little bit about what you went through to get everything together on this small budget, and then maybe now looking back, what do you appreciate about those constraints?
Oh, I love that question because I feel like, I've so much of my work has been in the microspace, and I feel like sometimes there is incredible creativity that happens and only happens when you are limited.
Yes.
Like we have this notion that if we have unlimited resources, it'll make everything better. But I think when you don't, you have limited time, you have limited money, you have limited whatever, you're forced to be creative in a way that you're not when you have everything and all the toys. And so that was, I think, one of the biggest gifts of the journey of this project. But yeah, it was kind of a wild ride. So this project, basically, I left LA feeling really burnt out because I felt like, so Tim and I met because I had another script that I was developing in LA for years and years that he was attached to, and we'd gotten so close so many times, and it was just one of many projects where I just felt like I was smacking into walls trying to get things made, and I was feeling really burnt out and wondering if I was even meant to do this and what my path was. And so I moved up here and I kind of licked my wounds for a little while, but then I kind of, this script started to really come through, the first wave of it is I was like, screw it. This is the script. I'm just making it. I'm not waiting for money. I'm not waiting for permission. I will shoot it on my phone on the weekends with whoever I can find in my community if that's what it takes. And so with that surge, we actually did shoot one day on my iPhone with a few people I knew. Um, and then COVID hit and shut it down. And again, speaking about grace, like it's such a beautiful thing when you look in retrospect, because at the time it was felt like such a bummer. But through the course of those months where we were in like the full COVID lockdown, I ended up connecting with some new people on the island who introduced me to other people who introduced me to donors. And we ended up raising, still a very small film budget, but a lot more money than I was playing with before. And we were able to up level the production, quite a lot and bring on Dan Clark, who is a cinematographer who I absolutely love and have worked with for years. And I mean, Dan made this movie look like we had $5 million because he's just such a wizard with light and natural light. And we shot it in 15 days, 3 5-day weeks. And we were shooting probably 10 to 12 scenes a day. And it got to the point where we could really only do 1 or 2 takes of every piece of coverage. And so again, speaking of limitation, it was like, the whole thing was like an exercise in trust. Like I had to kind of live the message of the movie, which was like, we show up, we surrender to the energy of the moment, and we trust that it's enough. And so like some of those, really formative, like the moments between me and Toby in the car at the end, we each got 1 take of those close-ups, and it was like, all right, let's go, and I'm proud of how that turned out. And I think sometimes, again, like if we'd had 10 takes, would it have been better? I don't think so. I don't know. It would have been different. But like, I think there were so many things that, I went in thinking I knew what a shot was going to be or what a scene was going to be. And we didn't have what we needed, or we were in a different space. It didn't feel right. And so again, just trusting that flow and letting the scene tell you what it wants to be, it's like made everything just come alive. That was pretty magical.
When I was watching the film, I thought a bigger budget, it would have been kind of flashier, special effects, a spectacle, the shifting between realities would have been, kind of very glossy and, kind of out of this world. And this really smaller budget made you focus on the smaller parts of what was going on, the grief and overcoming the grief and kind of accepting it. And it became more personal. And I was thinking that as I was watching it, like, I'm glad that it was a micro budget because it was still a sci-fi movie, but it really made me focus on the people, and especially your character Riley. And I really appreciate that. It was like a new spin on what we can do with sci-fi. I think, and as a person who loves sci-fi, I really appreciated that. Um, Tim Lucas existing in another reality. He has this disembodied voice. You had to perfectly match it with your co-star, Chris Clark. His speech, his
Yeah.
mannerisms. What went into shooting that? Because you must have observed him very closely, his pauses and inflections to make sure you got that right.
Rachel sent me, I don't know, did you send me like a, I don't know, director's cut or something? You sent me an
The rough
early
cut, yeah.
rough cut so I could watch how he behaves and watch how his mouth works. Um, because I've done not looping, but ADR work where you have to redo a certain line that you've said
Sure.
because the wind is blowing, a helicopter comes through, or something like that. But this was on steroids to do this. But I went to this. I was in Los Angeles, so this is the magic of film. I was in LA, and so I watched the rough cut, loved the movie, thought okay, and then I go to this studio, this soundstage, and spend a good part of the day. We spent a good part of the day just following his rhythm and going with that, and also trying not to sound too, for lack of a better word, godlike,
Mhm.
but yet to have not add some humanity, but to continue with that humanity you were talking about, Kelly, that is so evident in the movie. Um, it was, on a practical sense, it was great because I didn't have to memorize any lines. I never, I could read the script the whole time, but it was exciting and it's funny. I've never met him. We've
Yeah.
never shaken hands or hugged. Am I right, Rachel? We've never met,
No, he didn't
and
make it out
so
to the LA
that
screenings or anything, yeah.
no, because I think I was back here in New York. In any case, I can't wait to meet him someday.
Yeah. I was your voice. Yeah. Well, and we played too because I sent both Tim and Chris. So, Lucas was modeled after these kind of spiritual channels that exist. So there's one that's quite famous called Bashar. His name is Daryl Anka. He channels Bashar. There's another Esther Hicks who channels Abraham. And there's this kind of cadence of speech that you'll hear consistently come through as these people are channeling. And so Chris was really working with that. And then Tim, Tim had a whole other challenge, which was not only the voice matching, which I remember that was quite fun to play with, but then also us figuring out collectively, like, how do we layer his voice? And like, what if
Mhm.
other people could hear what the channel is hearing? What would it sound like? And that's something we're inventing because nobody really knows. And so that was fun.
It
It's a
was
whole
fun.
other level because
I,
when you're
I
used to, what were we gonna say, Tim?
I'm sorry, but I
No
was going to
worries.
say I think that's part of Rachel's talent as well, in addition to her writing and directing. Sometimes I'll do a low budget film and the person is not an actor; they're only a writer, and so there's a bit of a tunnel vision if you're only a writer and well, you just know that you want to put your piece up, so you've got to get all these different departments. But coming from actually the last step, uh, in a way, yes, you have post production, but the last piece of the puzzle of a movie is actually the actor, and so Rachel is aware of what an actor needs. So she's always making sure I can shoot you out in 3 days, or I only need you for this much amount of time, and I'll need you here, and then I'll need you there. And she's aware of that, and that allows each artist to perform at their ultimate peak because they're not tired creatively. And I think Rachel is great that way in finding the least amount of time you need to be on a set. And when that happens, when you have the least amount of time on a set, you find yourself wanting to stay on the set more and longer and just become more of the community with the people.
Well, you
So
had the writer on set, obviously, writer on set, director on set, star on set. Was the
right.
script,
Mhm.
was there room for adjustments in the script on the fly, or was that really something that was solid because you had such little time to shoot?
No, it was definitely fluid, and there were, I mean, this the lines more or less stayed the same, but whole scenes changed. Like, one of the scenes, like the end scene with Toby, that was a big one because the whole I had written it as we were driving. It was a driving scene, so I was driving the car and we were having this conversation, and I got in the car with the thing Dan had rigged on the windshield with the lights and the stuff, and I started to pull out of the driveway, and I was like, absolutely not. I can't see. Like, I will not be able to be focused at all. This does not work. Um, and so we changed it, and it was a still scene parked in the dark, which ultimately was so much better, right? Because that stillness was so essential. But I didn't see it in the script phase, and other scenes with Toby as well in particular. Like I think by casting, so Johnny's a friend of mine as well. Casting him, he surprised me a lot. So like I had this idea of who Toby was as the right, like when I was writing him, like he was kind of this doof, and people were going to be like, she's well shot of him, like get on with with the next guy. But Johnny brought such a lovely boyish delightfulness to him that like when I got into those scenes, I was like, oh no, this is infinitely more complicated than
Mhm.
I thought in terms of this departure and this goodbye. And it's not that there's anything wrong with him, or there's anything wrong with them as a couple. It's just like they've moved on, and that's almost more heartbreaking. And so I love
Mhm.
being in a position to change the script on the fly because I think you discover things in the room when you connect with other actors and you're actually in that space. And if you're willing to, like Tim was saying, not be married to your vision, then you can be surprised and it can be better for it, every time.
Well, were you going to say something, Tim?
No, it's just agreeing adamantly.
Well, Rachel, was there a particular scene that maybe challenged you the most? We talked about the kind of morphing the voices together in the cadences with Tim, and now you're talking about this scene here. Was there a particular scene that really challenged you that now, when you're looking back on the film, you're really proud of how it turned out?
Hmm.
Yeah, I think I think what comes to mind, and not to keep harping on the same scene, but is that scene with Toby. And I think for a couple of reasons. One, because what I didn't mention before is the rigging of the stuff on the car for the driving scene took Dan and his lighting team hours. Like it was our longest, most intricately setup that they had done. It was dark. We had already shot a bunch of day. We had a bunch left to shoot. It was the middle of the night. Everyone was cranky. Everyone was stressed. And so when we essentially determined that we couldn't do this anymore, there was kind of this wave of like, with everyone, and then when we got into the scene, both Dan and my producer Sienna, just I could feel that sort of tension, stress, energy, and it was affecting me. And this scene was so important. And I actually said to both of them, I don't remember what I said, but in that moment, I was like, "Can we just take a breath and like settle into this space?" And they both kind of took off in opposite directions into the dark because they were like, "Ugh," and they went. And I was sitting there like, "Oh God, I don't know what to do." And I was feeling, responsible and vulnerable and worried. And Johnny in the moment just looked at me and he was like, "Well, just use it." And so they came back like ready to go, and we hit rolling, and like we just started going, and then I just started crying, and then the scene just like felt so organic, and it didn't feel like acting. It didn't, and again, we each got so few takes because again we burned all that day.
Right.
But when I look back on it, it's one of the scenes that I feel like I was just present. Like I was just present and I was just feeling the feelings and being her in that moment and with my friend in the car. And it was really special. And so that sticks with me kind of on the full spectrum of like what the things you'll never see behind the scenes and then where we ultimately came to at the end.
Well, Tim, the film, like I said earlier, kind of breathes in this ambiguity of quantum parallels and extraterrestrial life and psychological
Yes.
torment of grief. What scenes did you find that stuck with you most? Maybe it was harder to shake off that scene at the end of the day, even if it wasn't your scene. Maybe something that you even watched in the
Oh, I don't
dailies or
know
something.
that they all seem to be part of the same scene for me. It was a through line that I I think one of the other scenes that hit me was the it was a group scene at the book store that affected me strongly. But I couldn't say that one per se affected me more than the other. The whole movie stayed with me.
Yeah.
And I wished it certainly made me wish that I was up there with
I wish you were up
everybody.
there too. It would have been so fun.
Yeah.
Well, has the working on the film, Tim, has it shifted your perspectives in any way? Maybe on death or grief or reality, the unknown, even?
I think it strengthened my perspective on being open to different realities, the unknown, death, parallel universes. It has strengthened my belief that that is out there, and that for me, these thoughts came to me very early in life, and I think they come to a lot of children early in life, where there's another world, or they certainly question what if, and it it strengthened it because it was, again, we've said this before, because it was not so necessarily science fiction. It
Exactly.
was it was a human story. It was it's a movie about relationships. It's about relationships, and but just
What about
that
you,
happened to
Rachel?
be in
Oh, go ahead. What you're saying?
no, that just happened to be in different universes. That's all.
Absolutely. Well, what
As
about
we
you,
often
Rachel? You
are.
were already open to this. You already had an interest in this, obviously. So, did you find that it shifted that interest in unique and interesting and kind of surprising ways?
Definitely. And I will say the first wave of that is this movie felt like being naked on a stage in front of strangers because I felt like it was the first time I had written and produced something that was like my weird, as I would call it,
Mhm.
like just out for all to see. Because to me, this is the fringy stuff I grew up with that I didn't talk about much. Like that this, in terms of specifically like the spiritual channeling and like that level of stuff. My dad was a physicist also, so then like the quantum physics side of it all. And so when I first started showing this film, I was so like nervous and vulnerable and like, oh God, are people going to think I'm just the weirdest? Like I think this is so bizarre. And I think the thing that surprised me the most and continues to surprise me is how many people connect with it. And yes, on kind of more like esoteric ways of like this resonates with me in terms of like my own spiritual journey or personal journey with grief. But recently we've as the film's been released more widely, we ended up on YouTube on Sci-Fi Central channel, which
Mhm.
I just found my way to a couple of weeks ago. And there are hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of comments from people saying they've had this actual experience. That they're like, she
Mm,
perfectly
mm.
captured what it feels like when I move between parallel realities in my life. And other people are like, same, me too. And so that's the stuff that I think fascinates me in terms of just, how people will take away from art what is true about them as people. And I think that just seeing that this is connected with a group of people who feel, who are having this experience in whatever way that is true for them, like that to me is so exciting and wild. Um, and so, yeah, it's just, I think it's, again, that flow thing. It's like when you trust a story that's coming through and you let it just come through, you just never know who it's for, what it's meant to be, how it's going to connect with people. Like it's almost bigger than and more than the person who creates it, because I had no idea what was coming through, in that way. And it's kind of like channeling, like writing, I think it's kind of like channeling. So is acting
Mhm.
when done right.
I was going to say that it's interesting from just a storytelling point of view that Rachel and I were working on a western that was very
Completely
much a
different.
part of the earth and just dirt and couldn't be more grounded. And so when I got this, I thought, well, look at Rachel. Oh, she's not. Oh, there's more to her than just saddling up a horse, obviously, and it obviously, and that's one of the reminders that, and unfortunately, I mean, well, I wish that movie got made, our western, but had it got made, there's an argument that it would have been even more difficult for you to make this one because make Ingress because people would think, oh, but she writes westerns. She,
Mm.
Or
You
it
pigeonhole
would have
that
have
been
to.
such a
genre.
massive hit that we would have been like, you can't make a film for less than $10 million now. Don't even try,
That's true.
right?
That's true.
And
Yeah.
then the reality shifting wouldn't be so much sort of like these wavy moments. It would have been like being pulled out of, it would have been something from like Avatar or
Oh my
something.
That's
gosh.
right. That's right.
Which is, I think, which really makes me one of the things I really loved about it. It just made me, it felt so much more personal, which the topic was really personal. Not only just these realities shifting, but the reasons why they're happening. It's something that's universal that we can all feel. All of us kind of hope when horrible things like happen to us, death and grief, that there is something somewhere going on where we're happier, where life is kind of normal again. And I think that's definitely
Yeah.
something that fans watching this could touch into. Tim, what do you hope the fans think when they watch this? They walk away thinking and feeling, talking about maybe.
Like, I hope they walk away, uh, perhaps hoping to have a more open and honest conversation with someone they love, and to not shy away from thoughts that others you may think others will judge, and other feelings that others will judge, and that it's so general, but it's true. Choose kindness. That's I think that's what I hope people would walk away from this.
And Rachel, you just said yourself, and it's already opening conversations where people feel seen. Maybe they hid those feelings. They thought that was their weird. They didn't want to share with people, and now they're like, oh, there's a space where I can
Yeah.
talk about that and feel
Yeah.
seen a little bit. Everyone wants to feel seen, even the weirdest parts of them.
Yes. Oh my gosh, yes. And I think that's like the biggest lesson for me in going through this was like I was super vulnerable in this piece. And my vulnerability, because I was willing to step into it, as scary and uncomfortable as it was, opened up this space for others to feel safe being vulnerable back. And I think that's, to Tim's point, like how we enter a room is how people receive us and how we receive them. And so by opening a space of saying it's safe here to be yourself, then people show up
Right.
and you start to see things you wouldn't otherwise see. And I think that's so beautiful. And I'm just honored that this film could do that for people. And yeah, it's been really special. And I get emails, people email me privately to tell me about the story they've never told anyone about this weird thing that happened to them. And I'm just like so honored that I can be a safe space where
Mm.
people feel like they can tell me these things. And
Yeah.
I just try to be as kind about it, and just, even if, because a lot of people assume I also have experience traveling through dimensions in this way, which, maybe I don't know, but so I try to just be like, that's amazing. Thank you for, telling me this. And who knows, like maybe we're all shifting realities all the time.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. Who
Well,
knows?
Rachel, we talked about your Western that didn't get made. Maybe it will. But and then this came about. What kind of stories are you itching to tell next? You working on anything that we can look out for?
Yes. A few things. So things are getting witchy over here in Rachel Land.
Mm.
Tim, I owe you a call because of this. I think I've told you this, but the Western has evolved dramatically into this very witchy, midwifey, feminist. I mean, it was always kind of that, but it's taken roots and gone deep into the earth. Speaking of earthly, so that one's still percolating in a different form. And then I have a new project, a new feature script I'm working on that is kind of a mythological allegory.
Mm.
It's still coming into form, but it's kind of again, it's dealing with the feminine and how it's been repressed, and sort of this time of conflict we're in, and women's body autonomy and right to choose, and just this general energy of being a woman in this world is kind of in a strange place.
Mm.
And so kind of a space of oppression and discovery and reclaiming power and fire and sisterhood. And so that one's currently in the writing phase.
Very timely.
Yeah. Yes. Yes.
Oh, I
What
love
about you,
those.
Tim? You working on any other projects we can keep an eye out for?
I'm doing a play right now, which touches quite a bit on grief and about connecting with other people who have lost something. It's called The Counter, written by Megan Kennedy, and it's beautiful, two-hander for the most part, just a man and a woman sitting in a diner, and he asks her to do a big favor for him, and it's funny, it's beautiful, it's a beautiful piece. There's another woman it's just three people. I think Matt Bomer and I are going to do a podcast later on,
Oh,
for a while. So I'm white
white
Yay!
collar
collared, so
fans.
that will be fun. Yes, that will be a good time. I hope that we our schedules will work out, um, and a few other things that are possible. We shall see. So
Well, that
staying
sounds
busy.
fantastic. I look forward to whatever Rachel comes out of her mind onto the paper and onto the screen. And Tim, I look forward to anything you're in. Fans, if you're interested in Tim and Rachel's film Ingress, you can watch it right now streaming on Amazon Prime and other streaming sites as well. Go check it out, everyone. Thanks so much, guys, for talking with me today. It was a pleasure.
Thanks, Kelly.
Thank you,
Absolutely.
Kelly.
Absolutely.